Today is September 27th. Today's quote is entitled, "Worse than the fault you find." We may notice a fault in another that upsets us, but talking about the fault, unless we are in a position to help, want to help, and the person wants our help, it's often worse than what the person you were faulting did. A lot of times we talk about constructive criticism, and when I talk about fault finding, someone will raise their hand and say, but shouldn't we give constructive criticism? Yes, if the person wants it, if your heart is there, in the mood to help, and if the person wants you to be the one to help them. What I'm referring to in this quote is a very common phenomenon where we're pointing out a fault, we're discussing a fault, and it creates a very toxic environment within the group where we're discussing it or within the community. And therefore what the person did often is not as bad or doesn't create as much a problem as what we're creating by talking about the problem, because we may talk about it in a very negative way, in a way which becomes a contamination to the serene atmosphere of Vaishnava Seva, Vaishnava appreciation, Vaishnava glorification, and so forth. And so we need to be more sensitive to the atmosphere we create within our organization, and the importance of creating proper Vaishnava Sangha where we appreciate one another. Because if we bring in too much criticism, especially criticism which is unnecessary, it creates basically the opposite environment, and it's not an environment which is a healthy environment in which to grow. It's not a healthy environment to bring in other people. So that's why I say that sometimes even we may point out a fault which is real. I'm not even talking about a fault that's imagined, but a fault that's real. It may create more of a problem in bringing it up and discussing and trying to deal with it than the fault itself. And in some situations it just may not be the right time, the right situation, or appropriate to discuss a fault for various reasons, one of which may be that there's nothing we can actually do about it, and discussing it does nothing but just discourage ourselves and everyone else. So I'm not saying that we avoid problems, I'm not saying we don't point out faults when they need to be pointed out, but we just need to be careful about what are the ramifications of discussing and pointing them out. Sometimes the ramifications are that the problems aren't resolved, that people the result of your talking is that people just don't like you, they don't want to associate with you, you lose some association, you create bad feelings amongst Vaishnavas. And you end up acting more like an ordinary person than a devotee. So we should be aware of these things, we should be cautious. It's not that's because something's a fault. Everyone in the universe has the right to talk about it, get on the internet and discuss a particular individual and how they're at fault. It's not really what Prabhupada wanted us to do. And if we have to discuss a fault, at least do it respectfully. We honor that person, we appreciate that person, but then we also point out, here's a mistake we think they should correct.